This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to episode 250 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
250 episodes, Cody, of the podcast proper.
Yeah.
Something like 14, 15 bonus episodes.
And then countless episodes of Quarren Stream and
the Re-MCU.
Which
rest
we'll
in
bring
peace,
back.
I guess, both of them. I don't know, maybe someday. It'll be like when they brought back, like when they bring back Curb Your Enthusiasm after like 5 years off or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think we left off on Ant-Man is our next one, I think.
Maybe. I don't remember. I know I was thinking about it. I know we went through Guardians of the Galaxy because I was thinking about that when with one of the shows we're covering today. And I remember being quite fond of Guardians of the Galaxy upon rewatching it.
Yeah.
I don't know about everything that's come after it, but maybe a little spoiler, but
Yeah, I would be interested to, because I haven't seen like Guardians 2 since theaters, and I have to imagine it. I remember being very underwhelmed, but
yeah, and then with whatever the hell was happening in Thor Ragnarok, or sorry, not Ragnarok, Love and Thunder.
Yeah,
with the Guardians of the Galaxy, where it was just even that was too wacky for the Guardians of the Galaxy. I would like to revisit that. How many Marvel movies have come out since the last time we did an episode? Probably at least 6.
Yeah, and like 3 TV shows or 4 TV shows or something.
Oh, I think every single TV show since then.
Does it predate the Marvel shows? Our last recording?
I believe so, because they started in 2021 with Vision, WandaVision. I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
You know, it's interesting too because I wanted to do stuff with that show, like revisit like the X-Men movies and like all like older Marvel properties that weren't part of the MCU, and then we just lost focus there.
Well,
we had a pandemic. Come on.
Yeah, and yeah, as if that's an excuse to not
to not watch a bunch of movies.
Watch a bunch of movies and sit and make a podcast about it. Sorry, I'm trying to look up when the last episode was, but my keyboard doesn't want to cooperate very well.
I'm sure I could find that here.
Let's see.
It was December 11th,
2020. So yeah, every single Marvel TV show has come out since then.
Damn, we haven't done that in 2 years.
We left off with Avengers: Age of Ultron. Fuck. Yeah, 2 years.
So here's what we do. We call that was season 1. Season 2, we took the Better Call Saul break of 2 years.
Yeah, or the Breaking Bad one where we let Kyle Chandler get his Emmy for Friday Night Lights. And, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, it is Thanksgiving, Cody.
Yeah.
Well, tomorrow is. So we're coming at you a little quicker than we normally do. 2 days after recording our last episode. Remember when we started and we would bank like all that stuff to release on Christmas? And
yeah.
God, we were so ambitious.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that you and I just don't like quickly knock out, like a review after we've seen it and just like splice together, just like we're wearing different clothes and stuff.
The video does really make it difficult to do that.
Yeah.
With audio, it was much easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would do that. Was a lot of production.
Mm-hmm.
We're lucky that anything gets edited in this new version or this current version.
But we've also kind of perfected the art,
I mean, why screw with greatness, right?
Exactly. We're one take, no edits. We don't say we filter out all the offensive things we want to say.
I would go through yeah. Instead of having to do it in post, like maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you? I assume you're not going anywhere for Thanksgiving. Your family's in San Antonio.
Correct. Yeah.
We have to drive to San Antonio. That's the fate of living far out of town, but not far enough away that it's prohibitive to drive.
We can't get away with not going.
The pandemic, we got away with not going, and I've never been happier not traveling.
Yeah.
I love my family, but to go to drive 2 hours to go eat dinner and then come back is not, I don't know. Anyway, So I think that's enough. Ready to get started on. We got 3 reviews today, Cody. It's a pretty full show.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up, we have The Fabelmans. I promise. I promise.
IBM? That's where guys like Bert are figuring out how to use what he's made to... They're going to change the whole goddamn world, so this was the right decision. For all sorts of reasons. Yeah, so I'm happy for you. You know I am. But I'm going to miss you. All of you, a lot. You think whatever bad things you want about me, kiddo, but you stop making movies, it'll break your mother's heart. You will break her heart, I mean it. She doesn't deserve that, not from anybody, least of all from you.
This is the latest from Steven Spielberg. Somewhat autobiographical film about his childhood and adolescence, making movies, I guess.
Yeah.
Cody, tell us about The Fabelmans. What you thought of it?
Sure. So, I mean, what you're describing there is autobiographical. I remember when it first was announced that this movie was being made, the whole thing was Steven Spielberg is making a movie and directing it about his own life. And I remember the reaction being like, oh, that's kind of weird and potentially self-indulgent, but he's Spielberg. I guess he can get away with it. And thankfully, I think what we get here is not sort of like Spielberg, like tracking himself, like making Jaws and stuff. Like it's, it is, his childhood, and it's done through, the characters in the movie are not. It's not Steven Spielberg. It's Sam Fabelman, which I guess is like your aunt trying to remember who directed Jurassic Park. But,
Sam Fabelman.
Yeah.
I guess it's I guess the name is a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
Fabelman. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. And so what you get is sort of a semi-autobiographical, and by many accounts pretty accurate, especially with some of the family drama. Apparently that was like a family secret for a long time that wasn't really talked about or explored, and now out in the open and in the public. So so you get kind of like that element of the family drama in his upbringing mixed in with sort of him falling in love with the movies and in particular making movies. And I'm not going to play like film critic bingo and say the LL word about what the movie is, if you know what I mean here.
The what? I'm sorry.
The LL phrase.
I don't.
A love letter.
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it that, but what it is it's kind of like an exploration of his influences and how he kind of got connected with movies. So it's kind of broken down into a few different pieces, kind of like chapters where it starts off with a really young version of him seeing his first movie and picking up a camera for the first time and making home movies, and then through time you see the home movies get more involved, and the production goes up, and he starts taking it a little bit more seriously, and throughout this time dealing with family stuff, his dad being a little bit uncertain of this as a career path, his mom kind of being a little bit dealing with a little bit of like depression type stuff, but also some other family dynamics. And then you get the later chapter of him like going to high school and moving across the country. And, it does feel like kind of like this somewhat epic childhood story. I haven't really been super, even though I love Spielberg and I love, like Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Close Encounters. I love Minority Report. Jurassic Park is amazing. Like, just a really great filmmaker. The past like 15 years have not been that interesting. He's made, we were talking about it the other day, and what I said to you was like, it's like a series of, oh yeah. movies. Like when you start looking at his IMDb page,
it's like War Horse. Oh yeah.
Yeah. The Post. Huh. That's right.
I've heard the Post totally slipped out of my mind. Even after we talked about investigative journalism movies last week.
Yeah. I totally forgot about it too.
Yeah.
And it's like a movie that has Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, and you're just like forgot about it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so this is a return to form for me for Spielberg. I think it's his best movie probably since like, I don't know, War of the Worlds or something, like going back to like the mid 2000s. I would put this above like War Horse and Lincoln and West Side Story and I've not seen the BFG.
I haven't either.
I will say one that I liked in that time span was 1010, but that was like a co-direction with Peter Jackson, so it's hard to count that. But and it's an animated movie, but you know what you get is like a really sentimental movie, but also, you know, somewhat raw. You know, these things he's talking about here are real family dramas that aren't necessarily sugar-coated in sort of like the portrayal of his mom and his dad. And I appreciated that piece. I think that the movie like really soars when it's into like the love of filmmaking. You know, there's a lot of like snippets of like, I don't know what type of film it was, but you know, making movies there and like using fun and funny practical effects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That like look great and also, you know, show just kind of like, it's just fun to see Spielberg, you know, go back in time and kind of do, you know, those sort of like very simplistic, but yet, and like there's one scene where he makes kind of like I guess like a Western movie, and he uses like a technique to help with the gunfire to make it look more real. And I think like that whole sequence and then talking about it, the characters talking about it is really great part of the movie.
There's another one, like a World War II movie where they kind of improvise squibs, I guess. That's actually really clever.
Yeah, for sure. And I really enjoyed that piece of it. It's also funnier than I kind of anticipated, especially when you kind of get into the teenage years, the high school years of his life. And I think really emphasized by a great performance from Gabriel LaBelle, who is the one who plays Spielberg for the most part, or Sam Fabelman for the most part in the movie. I think he's really great. And I think that a lot is asked of him. A lot of dramatic heft, a lot of, you know, scenes where he has to, you know, show some chops and go up against, you know, Paul Dano and Michelle Williams. And I think he holds his own, and I think he's really great in it. I think a lot will be made about the Michelle Williams performance. For me, I thought a lot of times it was a little bit too much. I think it's kind of put on a little thick for her. And I think, you know, I think upon rewatch, I may have a little bit of an easier time with it because, you know, maybe that is a true, you know, inhabiting of the character and of the person. I thought that she was really good in spots, and then in other spots, you know, I had trouble locking into that character. But, you know, but for the most part, I found myself really, you know, really into this movie. There are some places where it is a little bit flabby. It's about like 2.5 hours long. And, you know, there's a sequence where Sam is uncovering a family, like something that's going on through like looking at film. And I feel like that scene plays out like really slowly. I feel like it's just a really long scene that I feel like could have been cut down a little bit. There's some stuff in his teenage years involving like him and a girl that I feel like is maybe a little bit too flabby. And in fact, really the whole high school thing I think could have maybe been condensed a little bit.
Yeah, it culminates in one really good scene.
Yeah.
Like two scenes back to back, but yeah, there is a lot of, it feels like a new movie's starting, I think, when he hits high school.
I agree with that. But I think that being said, they do feel like nitpicks because I enjoyed it so much. And then I think, and a lot of people are talking about this, but I think it ends fantastically. I think it ends with a really great scene and then a really great final shot that is extremely memorable. So, you know, for me, this is a return to, like I said, it's a return to form for Spielberg, a filmmaker that I really love, who I've been, you know, wondering what he had left. You know, his eye for composition never went away. You know, West Side Story looks great. There's some really fun stuff in Ready Player One, as much as I think that movie is like a little bit unbalanced. I feel like there's a lot of like fun stuff in it. And this for me is him like really in the zone for, you know, 90% of the movie. So I walked away being really impressed with it.
Yeah, I obviously am more of a classic Spielberg fan. There's never been I feel like since like the 1-2 punch of Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in '93, like that was his high point for me. Like that's, you got top of his game commercial Spielberg, and then like the award winning Spielberg, like in 1 year. It's a crazy year for a filmmaker. Like has this huge box office hit and then wins his first Oscar with Schindler's List, which is, I think everything from then has been kind of hit or miss. I'm not as big a fan of Minority Report as everybody else seems to be. To be fair, I haven't seen it since it was released. It does have some of the. I remember it having like, and these are like Spielberg things. Like it has like weird jokes in it. Like the one where Tom Cruise's characters, like the jetpack, like cooks some hamburgers. I think we've talked about it on the show before. Like it's weird touches like that I really like from Spielberg. And I think this movie really flourishes when it leans into that playfulness. Like you mentioned, that final scene, featuring kind of a two legendary people play the fictional and non-fictional together.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they're both real people, but one playing another person. Anyway, followed by that final shot, which is a callback to that scene, which is a great joke. Just a great little snippet that ends the movie, and it ends you like, I mean, it's puts a smile on your face because it's so great. When it really leans into that stuff, I think is when it really flourishes. The Michelle Williams stuff, again, like you mentioned, that's going to be a big talker. I felt myself not being on board for most of that. I think Michelle Williams is great. I think it's really heavy-handed in a lot of places where it didn't need to be. Like you mentioned, the scene where he's discovering a family secret, and we've all already figured it out at that point. The scene plays out. I don't know how it's a good like 2 to 3 minutes of screen time at least. And I get it. We're seeing it from his perspective in this kind of unflinching eye of the camera, but at that point we've already made the connection and we can tell. So I feel like that's some flabbiness. There's a scene that's in the trailer with a monkey that I don't know, feels ripped from something else.
Yeah.
It feels a little too madcap.
Even if it's true, I feel like it doesn't need to be in the movie,
Yeah, it feels too wacky. I really like Paul Dano a lot. He's great as a sort of kind of no nonsense character, but not cruel, not unkind, just sort of more down to earth. There's, I don't know the actor's name, but there's an actor who plays essentially a bully character who gets a really great scene near the end of the movie. And it's kind of a commentary on like the power of myth making with a film. And it's also hard to wrap your head around because all this stuff is so kind of ingrained in our lives, but you have to look at it as like, this is kind of people just discovering it in the 60s, like discovering this power of like, because you like the film opens with The Greatest Showman, The Greatest Show on Earth, not The Greatest Showman. That's the Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
And you watch that movie now, and a lot of movies from the 40s like that, or the early 50s, they're really stagey and off-putting. Like they don't look like a modern film. The special effects are chintzy. Spielberg, that late 60s kind of crowd, Spielberg in the 70s, that's where more realism started to come into play. And I think that's a neat little side thing. Like, the idea of like creating this reality that's not like separated from the screen, or separated from you by the screen. Maybe I'm rambling a little bit, but the difference between like 40s and 50s filmmaking and like 60s and 70s is pretty markedly different. Anyway, Spielberg is a huge part of that, clearly, in the 70s. That said, I really enjoyed it for the most part. I feel like it's the Michelle Williams stuff is the biggest sticking point for me. I'm really glad it's not a quote love letter to the movies.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was worried about, was it being sort of this like we'd watch it, we'd see him go watch some movie, and then he'd go do something and ravish attention upon some shit movie that who cares about. But anyway,
like Scorsese's Hugo.
Yeah. What was the movie that it was? Was it the silent
moon,
movie, right?
Yeah.
The Lumiere movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not quite the highs of Spielberg that I think he reached before, and that's the guy's 75 years old. It's okay. It's okay that he's not still making, the movies he was making when he was in his 20s and 30s.
Sure.
And probably he couldn't made this movie in his 20s and 30s. It would have been too different. But what's your grade for The Fabelmans, Cody?
Yeah, and I just wanted to include one more thing too, which I'm sure you want to comment on too, which is just there's also one great element of it, which is that Judd Hirsch comes in for
I forgot about that.
For maybe 5 minutes of screen time and just is fantastic and gives you one of the best scenes of the movie and just exits and then that's it. And I thought that segment was great. But yeah, so I think it's really great, and I look forward to watching it again and dissecting it a little bit more. But as it stands, I'm going with an A-. I think this is a really, really strong movie from Spielberg, and even though the bar might not be high for me, I think it is his best movie in almost 20 years, and and I think a good top 10 contender for me as well. I really liked it. A-.
Yeah, B+ for me. Like I said, the Michelle Williams stuff is a little much for me. Maybe on a rewatch it softens up a little bit, but right now it felt like two different movies at times. But I mean the performance is great. It's just it feels, some of it feels like it belongs somewhere else. Sure. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery.
This is just like the other ones, but I didn't send it to you.
How many of these boxes did you create?
5, one for each of my friends.
No test boxes, no prototypes.
My puzzle guy barely got the 5 done in time, and he apprenticed with Ricky Jay.
And once the boxes are open and the puzzle's complete, is there any way to close them again? To reset them?
Hang on. Someone reset the box. Someone reset the box. They sent it to you as a gag. Miles is doing a murder mystery. Let's invite Benoit freaking Blanc. Oh, it's so good.
I am mortified. I don't...
Why? I've got the pre-definite detective in the world at my murder mystery party. That is so legit.
Mr. Braun, I've learned through bitter experience that an anonymous invitation is not to be trifled with.
Okay, look, come on. I'd love to have you visit me at my home. There, you've been invited.
Well,
you're an official guest now. Thrilled to have you. I mean, relax. Enjoy yourself. Hey, try to solve the murder mystery if you can. I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's pretty next level. I'm gonna foil. I'll see you at the pool.
This is, of course, the sequel to 2019's Knives Out, from writer-director Rian Johnson. This is a Netflix film, first and foremost, but they are releasing it for a week in theaters, out right now, about a month before it hits Netflix. Cody, tell us about Glass Onion, and what you thought of it.
Sure. So Knives Out was a top 10 movie for me the year that it came out. Really loved it. Loved the performances from the entire cast. A dark comedy, but also, Rian Johnson clearly having fun dissecting, the wealthy class and family, family arguments over, wills and stuff like that. And I feel like, the walk away from that was just, the magnetic performance and character that Daniel Craig had as Benoit Blanc. And so basically what's happened is that Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig have agreed to just kind of keep making these movies as long as people will fund them. And so, we've got this one, and there is another a sequel coming out at some point on Netflix. Netflix ordered 2 Knives Out sequels. And it's basically just kind of Benoit Blanc going and solving new cases with an entirely new all-star cast. It's, as long as Johnson stays creative enough, this could be a formula that could last forever, right? It could be, we could have decades of these. And I hope there are, because I think these movies are fun. So what we have here is a different situation where you see Edward Norton's character there hire some friends over for a murder mystery party. And but like each of these friends that he has have dynamic characteristics that have them attached to him, and interestingly, as a lot of people have been pointing out, great timing for this movie, as Edward Norton is a bit of an analog of Elon Musk,
Right.
and as part of this, and so the jokes hit like twice as hard, I think, right now, given the state of everything. And one of the things that was really impressive about Knives Out was that, it wasn't like a traditional whodunit, and especially in the way that it's executed, it kind of like reveals the mystery midway through the movie and then provides like a new mystery attached to it. It kind of reveals its cards pretty early. And with Glass Onion, I don't want to speak too much on the plot just because I want it to unfold for people naturally, but it does similar things where it's taking you in one direction and then kind of like fills in some gaps for you so that now kind of like you get up to speed on what's going on, because things on the surface may not be as they appear, I guess I could say. And it gives a really juicy acting performance for Daniel Craig in particular, who, when he's like stepping off the boat onto this island that they end up being at, he doesn't seem quite in line with who he was in Knives Out. And you're kind of like, that's kind of strange. And then questions are answered after that point. I think that there's a lot of like great jokes at the expense of Kate Hudson's character, who I I enjoyed that part of the movie. Who plays, I guess, is she like a socialite? Is that the best descriptor of her?
I mean, she's I think she's a former model turned entrepreneur. So
yeah,
like, I mean, any number of people. I would guess like a Kim Kardashian sort of type.
Yeah. And then you have like Catherine Hahn plays like a politician, and you have Dave Bautista playing like a
men's rights Twitch streamer. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the best part, I mean, aside from Daniel Craig, is what we get from Janelle Monáe here, who I think is really great in the movie, like really, really good. And again, I don't want to bring anything up about that character in particular, just to know that I really like the payoff there. In terms of how it compares to Knives Out, I would say that I didn't find the movie as good as Knives Out, but I did find it to be funnier than Knives Out. I think that there's more jokes. I think it's more of a comedy than Knives Out was, like directly a comedy. The things in Knives Out that were funny were like reactions or like throwaway asides and stuff like that. Whereas I think that a lot of this is like, there's a lot of funny situational stuff. There's a scene that happens as Daniel Craig is trying to put some pieces together that happens like at a dinner table that that is really, really funny. I love that scene a lot. And yeah, it's just, it's one of those things. It's like, it's twisty, it's fun. It's a commentary on the culture and sort of like a number of different things. And it's really enjoyable. I'm perfectly good with having one of these movies every few years. And I think that, and then I hope that it keeps happening. So my overall analysis, not quite as good as Knives Out, still pretty good, and definitely funnier.
It's also a pandemic movie. That's not
yes.
It's not like some bullshit throwaway piece of crap. It's set during the pandemic, and it makes a little bit of sense. I mean, it's not like it's not like entirely dependent on that. It's not like, oh, it's shot over Zoom and
Yeah, there is also a pandemic related cameo that is very funny.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this movie. I haven't seen Knives Out since it was released, and it's something I need to correct. But I remember really being fond of it. I believe it was in my top 10 that year too. I can't see why it wouldn't have been. But I think I enjoyed this one more than the first movie. That may be the familiarity with the Benoit Blanc character, just knowing what to kind of expect. I think, like you mentioned, I think the kind of twisty middle part of this where we kind of reset the story point of view, I think that works super well. And I think that works even better than it did in Knives Out. I think it really puts the story in a different gear than it was in Knives Out. And I still think Knives Out is great. This one I just had so much more fun with. And I think the cast is even more game. And the cast of Knives Out, the original, is great too. I mean, you have Lakeith Stanfield, Jamie Lee Curtis, Don Johnson, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas. God, who else is in that movie?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Did I say her? I thought I did.
Anyway,
it's a huge, great cast. This is a great cast too. I really like Dave Bautista in this. I think he's probably the most. I don't know, man. Between him and John Cena, they're like the two best like actors to come out of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're just not afraid to be funny about themselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge go ahead.
It's a huge difference between another wrestler that does not seem to have that same sense of humor about
Which is a
himself.
shame. It's a real shame because I think he's a funny guy when he can be. But yeah, like he's not afraid to neither one of them are afraid to be the asshole.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge plus. Like John Cena in Peacemaker is super great, but Dave Bautista.
Cena's great in Blockers too.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the movie, but yes, I think Peacemaker is where he finally becomes like this is the guy he was always meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think Kate Hudson's really good too. And I really like what Edward Norton's doing here. Kind of playing this huge ass of a character who's entirely full of shit.
Yeah.
With a really kind of great sort of comeuppance at the end. I mean, I don't really want to say anything else about it because I really, really enjoyed it. And I think Daniel Craig, I mean, I'm super glad this role came along for him after Bond because I really only liked one of those Bond movies that he was in, but this he just seems to be having a blast and doing some really great work, being the fucking smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Like there's the scene you mentioned at the dinner table involving let's say an iPad as a that's such a great scene.
Yeah.
It just deflates the whole like bombacity of everything else. Bombacity, that's a word, right? Yeah. Anyway, I'm just trying to sound like Edward Norton's character.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I had a lot of fun with this, and I really wish it was playing longer in theaters because this was a really focused crowd at the theater I saw it. Clearly, very on board, but I think it plays super well in a crowd, and that most people are going to see it just on Netflix is not ideal, I guess, but. Whatever gets these things cranked out every 3 years or so, I'm 100% on board.
Yeah.
What's your grade for Glass Onion, Cody?
I give it a B+. Like I said, I if I'm using Knives Out as my measuring stick, I did not like it as much, and I would put that as like an A- movie. So I'm giving it a B+. By no means, a dismissive thing about Glass Onion because it is very good, very enjoyable, very fun. So I want to be able to, or be sure to, recognize that that's my assessment of the movie and not just that it's not as good as Knives Out.
Yeah. I'm flip-flopped. I'm an A- for this. This is probably this is one of my top 10 movies of the year so far. It's just so much fun. I can't wait to watch it again, and I'm glad that it's going to be on Netflix so I can watch it again easily. But that is in theaters briefly. If you're watching this relatively soon after we record it, or live right now, it is in theaters now, but it's only in theaters for the week. So get cracking unless you want to wait until December. Let's move on to our last movie or TV special, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special.
Maybe if we gave Peter a really wonderful Christmas gift, it would make him happy.
What kind of present?
Something special he will never forget.
What about someone special?
What?
Over the years, Quill has talked about one person more than any other. A legendary hero who has saved countless lives. We could give him to Quill as a present.
Yeah, can I help you?
Yes. We're looking for the legendary Kevin Bacon.
We're looking for the legendary Kevin Bacon.
I just said that, Drax.
Your voice is small and mousy. I think maybe he didn't hear you.
He heard. He's Kevin Bacon. He's probably got great ears.
I'm sorry, guys. I can't help you.
This is a in-canon holiday special airing on Disney Plus, featuring the Guardians of the Galaxy. As you can see, very Drax and Mantis heavy. Again, Dave Bautista and Pom Klementieff are pretty much the stars of this thing. Cody, you didn't see this, but I did. And I'm going to go back to what we mentioned a little earlier. I was a huge fan, especially rewatching, of Guardians of the Galaxy. Not so much Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I did have the chance to... At Disneyland, there is a Guardians of the Galaxy ride that features the cast and like an actual storyline. It's called Mission Breakout or something like that. And then there was a Halloween version. There was a separate version that played on the same ride. That was actually really great. Both of those served as a better sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This is... I don't know what this is supposed to be.
Oh boy.
And I don't want to sound like it's terrible, but it feels really inconsequential from a franchise like Guardians of the Galaxy, which has been stewarded and almost protected to a sense by James Gunn, who I mentioned just a minute ago in Peacemaker, created the show Peacemaker after directing John Cena in The Suicide Squad. I fucking love the Peacemaker. Peacemaker. That show is so funny and so well put together, and it has that mixture of humor and heart that the first Guardians of the Galaxy has. I don't know that Gunn has really been able to recapture that since with the Guardians of the Galaxy since then.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this a lot. He tends to lean into the maudlin stuff that doesn't necessarily translate on screen. Specifically the Groot stuff, who, by the way, looks like a guy wearing a suit in this movie or this special, and I don't quite get it. No one else seems to comment on that, but it really looks like a guy wearing a Groot costume.
Interesting.
Anyway, so the plot line of this film is that Peter Quill is through a story told by Kraglin, played by Sean Gunn, James's brother, kind of had Christmas ruined by Yondu. It plays in an animated flashback that Yondu kind of ruined Christmas for him as a child. Again, you get a cameo by Michael Rooker. Once again, rewriting the Yondu character into a more sympathetic character. But I digress. So as a result, you have Drax and Mantis go to Earth to basically bring Kevin Bacon, the real life Kevin Bacon, to Peter as a gift. That's kind of all that happens in the movie. The Old 97s show up, by the way. If you know the band, the Old 97s have a lot of screen time, perform a full song as aliens. Kevin Bacon performs a full song with the Old 97s as aliens. You get basically what amounts to a cameo appearance from Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, Peter Quill, Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon, Vin Diesel as Groot, again looking weird, Maria Bakalova as Cosmos the dog.
Oh yeah.
Who gets some funny lines. And then Karen Gillan as Nebula. Very, very brief appearances from the rest of them. This is the Drax and Mantis show. Man, I don't know. It feels really slight, and it feels like it doesn't all connect. Like this feels like something that'd be great to throw on in the background. I don't know how much you grew up with the idea of like a Christmas special.
Yeah.
But this is reminiscent of the Star Wars holiday special in that it's not the terribleness of it, but just sort of this kind of out of character adventure for these people. And I assume that's on purpose, is how this is meant to feel. I just don't feel like it ever really comes together.
That makes sense.
It's about 30 minutes of plot stretched to 45, unfortunately. And I don't know. This may not be for... I don't know. I haven't been... Like I said, I haven't been a fan of Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy stuff since the first movie. He seemed to recapture it with Peacemaker, but everything else has been sort of not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's airing on Disney Plus. I believe it's... I don't know if it's released today
I think
or
it's
not.
on Friday.
Friday. So just in time for the holidays after Thanksgiving. It even has a... Are you familiar with the old CBS like special presentation logo? That may be before your time, but
yeah.
It has a version of that at the beginning. So it's definitely playing into the idea of these old Christmas specials. That said, I don't know that it ever really connects the way it really, really should have. I don't think it's bad by any means, but I do feel like it's just sort of okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my grade for that's going to be kind of a B-. So
Okay, that's fair.
Anyway. I just felt like I rambled for 5 minutes about this, but...
No, that's what these solo reviews are about. I would have done it, but Disney gives us a very limited window that both of us have missed multiple times when we've been trying to watch stuff.
It sucks that they like give you... It's like, here's all 9 episodes of Moon Knight or whatever. You got to watch them by Monday morning, and it's Friday afternoon. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's my whole weekend watching Moon Knight, which I actually liked, but... Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. Next week, Cody, what the hell is happening? I have no idea.
So if we do decide to have a show, we can, it's Violent Night, the David Harbour Santa Claus thing. That's the major release. Probably some smaller stuff. We're getting into awards season, so I'm sure we'll be doling out. We're getting boxes of shit and screeners and all sorts of stuff, so...
Did you get your Pinocchio box?
I did, and I got a Wood Sprite Funko Pop, which is about like the least interesting one.
Oh, really? I got the Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Wood Sprite. I didn't even know they had a Wood Sprite Funko Pop.
Yeah.
Did you get the hot chocolate at least?
I did. I haven't tried it yet, though.
I haven't either. I was hoping it was going to be a replica of the puppet.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, but... okay, so if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. You can find us on Twitter at CineSnob, Facebook, CineSnobNet, YouTube.com/CineSnob. Cody, I saw a bunch of Ramble stuff in the pipeline.
Ramble, I was back this week for at least the regular Ramble, so you can take a listen to that. And then, when I'm there on Ramble Radio Tuesdays and Fridays.
Otherwise, don't fucking listen, right? Fuck them.
Yeah, I'm the real star of the show.
Yeah,
so.
Not those working comedians.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, anything else before we go?
No, I think we're good. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. On that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafania.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.